It is a beautiful jam.
It is a beautiful jam. How's it going out there in Podcast Nation? We're here for another quick live video before we got to hit the bus and get rolling.
Podcast Nation, Facebook Nation, Instagram
Everywhere Nation. Across the world.
Everywhere. Just like that, you can turn your phone on live, your Facebook on live, your YouTube on live, and you can connect with thousands of people. Just like that.
I've got consistent people watching now, and 3 in France, 2 in Switzerland. That's crazy. I never thought I'd ever reach out that far.
Let's face it, there's nothing, just think of what you just said, Del. So Del's talking about his podcast. There's nothing that you can reach further with than a podcast in 2020.
It's amazing.
You can literally turn on a podcast and share a story or bring a light to your brand or your business in a snap of a finger. You can literally, like Del just said, reach. Like, if you think about the most culture-relevant thing that is content, it's podcasting. And everyone in the world's listening to them. So
somebody knows me in France and Switzerland.
There's no other way you could have done that without a podcast.
That's just crazy that somebody knows.
And you're in Duluth, Minnesota. Exactly.
I know.
It's the coolest shit ever. I agree. That's why I love it. And then you start to. I love podcasts, dude.
Yes.
I'm in love with them.
Definitely.
Especially now that we have our own and that we're starting to see other companies that we're working with start their own. It's just so cool and incredible how you can start to share your story at scale with everyone. So what are we going to talk about today, though, Del? We just did an episode on morality. If you want to tune in for that. Otherwise, look for it on Del's channel coming up shortly. Del will have a bunch more episodes being released shortly on his channel.
Yes.
And he already has some up there, but he has more coming up. And one of the ones we just did was morality, but it'll be out.
The morality one I'm uploading on YouTube right now. It should be on there in the next few minutes, ready to roll for your enjoyment.
And then we'll upload it on his platform, too.
That is correct. So I decided for this next one, we're going to go ahead. Of course, you picked the subject, but I thought we'd go with some more colorful dialogue instead of being as intense and serious as we were on the other one, but it's still a good topic, though.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Sarah. First off, I just want to say that I am so delighted and happy that you're here with us today. So right now, what's going to happen is this. We're going to talk about conspiracies. And the one that seems to hit home a lot, one of them anyway, is global warming.
Come on, I'm all about conspiracies, and I understand people have their thoughts and inputs on things, but global warming has qualitative and quantitative proof. Me and Del talk about this all the time, him being the recovery atheist, how religion is the most, fictional story pitch ever. It's all about pitching a story to someone, and it's pitching this and pitching that. But let's face it, religion is religion. But when it comes to global warming, let's face it, there is qualitative scientific proof that there is global climate change.
Yeah, they changed the name now from global warming to climate change.
I like that because it's easier for people not to deny. Because warming, they're like, oh, it's not warming.
Because if you can't see that the climate has been changing
in areas like Minnesota, and
it's definitely changing.
And if you can't accept the qualitative measurements, it's not just people's opinions; it is scientific evidence.
And for once, Al Gore was right.
But I love this topic because me and my brother just actually got done talking about some of the major threats to humanity. Some of the major threats to humanity are global warming, and and we caused them. They're man-made. We have impacted the Earth in such a way, in a disruptive fashion. We're living in a disruptive, selfish fashion that we have impacted the Earth, and it's now impacting climate change. And it's a really interesting topic, and I want to lean more into it because I'm very passionate about it, because I want to live as long as I want. I want to live a long, prosperous life, and I want other people to be able to live a long, prosperous life.
Right. So, as time goes on, when you look at the history of our planet, certain things seem to work in cycles according to history. Now, obviously, there's been many ice ages. I'd have to say that the Earth has been hot. Obviously, we've been in times where it's been nothing but volcanoes across the Earth back during the development ages. But the thing is this climate change that we're talking about has to do with human error for the most part. Depending on what it is. Some of it is natural selection that way, but a lot of it is we've done some damage. to the planet that is causing, especially when you're talking about the ozone layer and the global warming effect that happens inside of that, and we're getting more and more of the sun rays, the radiation that's coming in and heating up the atmosphere. It has scientifically been proven. There is tons of evidence that is saying that this is happening. But of course, you've got a lot of the right-wingers, you've got a lot of the Christian belief, you've got a lot of different people saying, oh, it's all a hoax. It's all a hoax. Don't buy into it. It's so funny. They want to sit there and they live in fear and try to transfer that fear onto us. But when they have something that they should have a little bit of fear about, it's a hoax.
Hoax. They're going to call science a hoax.
Science. It's not real, people. That's what they want to tell you, that science is not real. And I cannot believe that people go day to day living their lives thinking that science is full of shit.
Yeah, to me, it's all about what we do at Wierman Media. It's about being scientific in what we do. We believe in empirical models. Empirical models are based in observing and learning through experience and testing, measuring, and developing. So, like when we're making content, we're releasing content and we're seeing what content does the best and what copyright does the best and what the best type of content, the most interactive content, and then we're testing, measuring, and developing ways to improve on that and lean into those. So it's all about testing, measuring, and developing at Wierman Media. It's what we believe in. We like letting the market and the audience decide. So interesting with global warming, how many people just are completely ignorant to the facts. It's just, to me, an epitome of everything that we talk about with science, religion, and people just choosing to pick and choose what they believe. And it's interesting because when we choose to believe something, we can believe anything. Mm-hmm. And that correlates with everything that you talk about, Del, and what we talk about at Wierman Media, because people just choose to believe stuff. No matter what, you can choose to believe whatever you want to believe. But for me and for Wierman Media and what we believe in science, and we believe in qualitative and quantitative proof.
Correct. And so, I don't know. When it comes to me, I'm going to believe what is factual and what has evidence base to it. And science brings that for me. So if they're able to go through the process and do research and keep statistics when it comes to the temperatures that are going on across the world, the ice melt off when it comes to the caps, the polar caps, and they can see where this is happening, you got to put 2 and 2 together and get 4. And what they're seeing is that there is an adverse effect that has happened from years and years of certain human damage that has happened, whether it be cutting down the Amazon rainforest, whether it be the garbage that's being used, thrown out everywhere, and what that does, aerosol, methane gases, oil being pumped out of the earth, and all of this other stuff. We're using up our natural resources. And what gets me about the whole thing is we've seen this coming for a while, and we have all these other options that we can use, whether it be wind power, solar power, all these other things that we can use, but yet we're still not using it. It literally, we're using like 10% of what the capacity that we could be using it for, and we still have not been able to accomplish that.
So it's interesting once you start to look at this, because ultimately it's about disruptive versus innovative. So one of my favorite books I talk about is The Innovator's Dilemma. And in The Innovator's Dilemma, it talks about in business, you have to be sustainable and disruptive in your innovation. Innovation is either disruptive innovation or it's sustainable. And when you look at our humans and how we're living, it's disruptive to the earth. It's not sustainable. It's either one or the other. It's either disruptive or sustainable. In consumerism, you can Google this topic. Google, is consumerism sustainable? It is not. We have limited resources, and we have limited, our oil is not an unlimited resource. There's limited natural resources. Yes. They call them natural resources and limited resources for a reason. They are limited. So if you want to understand this, you have to realize that we have to switch from consumerism living to minimalistic living and start having less of an impact on the earth if we want to sustain as a species. It is one of our number one threats to our species as a whole in our existence is if we start destroying the earth. and destroying our planet, we will ultimately, as a species, have nowhere to go. Which is why it's so cool once you realize, as a species, one of our number one threats is our size. The bigger we get, the more land we need. So if we have that and we start consuming and destroying everything, it's kind of contradicting. That's why it's really cool when you see guys like Elon Musk doing what they're doing, because there is probably going to be a point in time where we have to maybe expand and go somewhere else.
Right. And so when you look at the observed temperatures, they've been obviously, registering this and taking stats for it and keeping a list of it.
And there's a clear uptick in this.
Right. So from 1960 to where we're at today, we have gone up, and it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's huge, a total of 2 degrees. On
average, right?
Yeah, on average across the world. So it is definitely 2 degrees makes a huge difference. You do another 2, another 3 degrees, and you're talking about parts of the earth that normally is lush with green foliage and all of a sudden drying up into a desert type state over time. And so when it comes to it, is it human driven or is it natural driven? And it's easily been shown that the natural side of it has stayed pretty even keel. It's the human driving, the human interaction that is happening with our world that is causing these temperatures to gradually go up. And it says the largest human influence has been the emission of greenhouse gases. So you're talking about carbon dioxide and methane, burning of fossil fuels, things of that nature, and the emissions, our vehicles, things of that nature, that is causing this greenhouse effect.
So my dad actually gave me a really good perspective on this, and it's a really interesting perspective when you realize it, that the whole COVID thing has given the world and the earth a pause, because all of the gases and the carbon output and so forth has been put on pause. And when you realize it, it's really interesting, because ultimately COVID is making us start to hit pause and audit our actions, how I cough, how I act, how what I do might get someone else sick, and starting to care more about other people's well-being, and how what I do can possibly cause someone else pain and suffering or death. And the other thing that's cool about it is COVID also is pushing us to have to think about our impact on the ecosystem. And that's a lot what global warming is about. Start thinking about, how am I impacting the ecosystem around me? Not just this is crucial in the individual and relationship level, but also in global warming, how I'm impacting the earth, how I'm impacting all this shit. We all play a role in this. And I think it's really interesting how I've always been a believer of minimalistically living, and living within my means, and in turn it's forced me to limit things like having a car and so forth, and it's pushed me to have more freedom and have more finances, but at the same time I've had less of an impact on global warming because I'm not driving a car, I ride the bus or I walk. And I think it's really interesting, this whole debate around all of this.
Right. And so when it comes down to it, you look at the news every day and what's going on. I mean, obviously we've had some strange heat waves. We've had earthquakes in areas that normally don't have them. The biggest thing, though, I want to talk about is California. In California, I mean, they would love to just have a glass of water. It's been so dry out there over the last few years that the wildfires that have been happening out there, it's not normal what they've been dealing with when it comes to the wildfires. And it's destroying, I mean, thousands of acres of land and homes and property and
we're
deaths. Seeing
it more and more. You see fires, like Australia had a major fire, California.
Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing it happen. It's coming to fruition. And this, when you Google and read about it, like Dell's giving you facts here. This is not like Dell.
No, this is real
This
facts.
isn't Dell picking something up out and writing it in a book and then telling you this is real. This is factual.
No,
this is science.
Definitely.
This is current events. This is reality. And start to look at the stuff that... I highly suggest Googling threats to humans' existence and threats to our species. And this is like number one.
Right, and so you look at it, you look at these storms that we've been having as well, some of the, like Katrina and some of the other ones that have gradually been coming. That last hurricane that hit, literally in Minnesota, we were in a tropical depression. That it came so far north, the furthest north of any storm ever in the history of recorded history, of a hurricane that turned into a tropical storm and then a depression. It went the furthest north. It actually went into Canada, the remnants of it. So we're getting more and more of that type of stuff that is happening. And it's changing also when it says the greatest spots that are hitting is like the Arctic Circle. It's melting the glaciers, the permafrost, the sea ice. if it continues to go the way it is, it's gradually going to lift the sea levels up more and more. They're saying within the next 20 to 50 years that New York could be completely immersed in water.
Here's one of the cool things. If you look at the middle of the North America, guess where we are? Minnesota is like one of the safest spots on the North America.
Well, hopefully, Superior won't take us over. But
ultimately, I just think it's interesting how I'm trying to always draw correlations to the main facts that I think about and we believe in at Wierman Media, which are spiritual and scientific. And when you think about them at the core, it's about being selfless and thinking of other people and bringing value to people. That's the spiritual end of Wierman Media. We believe in bringing value. That's what me and Dell on our shows, we try and do. Via our experiences, we try and bring forward some kind of insight, perspective, in an authentic, vulnerable fashion into our experiences and our value. And we share value. We try to bring value. And then that is the spiritual end. It's working with others and bringing value to others freely. And then the scientific end is based in testing, measuring, and developing systems within which to operate and within which you can maybe pursue your passions for profit and make an income. And a big part of it is just understanding that we have to work well with others and start cooperating with others and focusing on minimizing our impact on the earth, because that correlates directly with consumerism versus minimalism. And one of the steps at Wierman Media is the first step of auditing my income and actions and living within my means so I can pursue my passions for profit and have control of my time. And it directly has a direct correlation with consumerism versus minimalism. And that correlates right with global warming, because global warming is about our impact on the earth, carbon footprint, carbon emissions, etc. And when I'm living a more minimalistic life that's not consumerism and like buy cars, fly all over, like it's much easier to not have an impact on the earth when I'm not all about this consumeristic lifestyle, and I don't have to worry about that as much. You know what I'm saying, Del?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like you see me, Del. I ride the bus, don't I, Del?
Yes, I do too.
I ride the bus. I have no shame in that. A lot of people might have shame in riding the bus, but guess what? It's free. Currently during COVID, the bus is free.
I don't know why you're not using it.
Like, it's free. I don't have any car insurance, and I don't have any car payment or car wear and tear or gas. Zero. If I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have the extra $1,000 a month to pay for the office that I'm building up here at Wierman Media.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it's just remarkable how if you're willing to sacrifice things, you can make a difference. And at the same time, this correlates directly with global warming, because I am now not buying a car, and it's feeding into global warming, the cars and all of that.
Right. And so what the UN and other different scientific fields are going into say that we cannot exceed any more than 1.5 Celsius. They're saying by 2028 that we're going to be passing that. When that happens, they call it the tipping point.
Scary shit.
That at that point, if we don't do some changes here right now to where we can lengthen that time from 2028 to more in the future, that it will be where rapid releases will start happening from methane and carbon dioxide from the permafrost. It could trigger cooling in certain spots and then high temperatures in other spots, and it'll get to the point where they call it a hothouse Earth.
It's just so selfish and it's so ridiculously ego. It's remarkable that our actions, it's just an example to me of people that don't care about their impact on others or their impact on the ecosystem or the world or the earth around them. They will start, just because of, and if you think about it, the majority of the time it's about money. Let's face it. Most of the, like the law and legislation, like Trump's implementing all these, he's removing all these restrictions so that companies have less restrictions and easier ways to make money, and it doesn't matter if they pollute. But to me, it's the ultimate example of lacking any kind of compassion, empathy, or like humility, and living a life that's a little less like about me and more about the people around me and the impact I have on them, and then also the earth and the world around me. Like, Americans are just completely, they don't give a fuck.
Right, and there's two things that I'm going to point out that'll be a big effect that will happen from this. One will be the food production, the crop production. Certain foods are meant to be grown, farmed at certain temperatures. If these temperatures continue to rise, it's going to have an easy effect on how much we're going to get from our crop production, which could lead to other things like famine. Now, in this country, it might not be as bad, but you look in other countries.
That's the
Africa,
sad thing. You just hit it on the head.
Right, South America.
America, we're going to be people in America just really need to reflect on this, because we're the ones impacting this shit the most, but it's not going to affect us. Because we have the technology and the tools and the infrastructure to migrate or to reinvent or to invent a new tool or whatever comes up, a technology, a gadget.
Right.
We're probably going to be okay here, like Del just said. But when the people that are going to get screwed over the most are the ones in third world countries, rural areas
that don't have air conditioning,
they're going to start having major impacts, and we're just going to live in our plush. It's just remarkable.
Well, and that's not just the only point. The other point will be the wildlife.
Sad, man. Anyone that's lived outdoor lives or spent time in Hawaii,
well, the biggest impact it's going to have is by all this water, the ice, it's going to, falling into the ocean and melting, it's going to affect the pH levels and the temperatures of the water in the oceans. And I'm guaranteeing you, this is what the scientists are saying, that there will be extinction of animals and fish in certain different habitats. What's the polar bear going to do when it doesn't live on the ice anymore?
Sad.
This is going to have
profound
impact on the way we look at the world. We look at this whole thing with COVID-19 right now and how we call it the new norm and the impact it's had on us and having to change the way we live our lives.
I think it's beautiful, though. It's weird. Really weird.
In one way or another, it is kind of...
It's forcing change, but it's also forcing people to have to change, and people need to wake up.
Well, this whole thing with the global warming, we're having to change.
It has to.
It has to. If we continue to go down the road that we're going, this world is not going to be the world that we're going to want to live in. There's going to be lots of area on this earth that is going to be really unlivable.
Which is really interesting. And then you correlate this all back to what Del and me are all about. And Del's the Recovery Atheist, and I'm brother 2 of the two-brother duo. Brother Uno is Isaiah.
Shout out!
And it's interesting because what we talk about all the time is how people and what they choose to believe. And he's all about the Recovery Atheist, and it's correlated strongly with religion, and people choose to believe religion. It's really interesting. This is a great example. People choose not to believe global warming. We can choose to believe whatever we want, but you need to start auditing why you choose that. And me and Del have talked about this, why we choose to believe in something, why we choose to value something, why we choose to trust something.
Right.
And ultimately, I think it's hard to not trust science, and it's hard to not trust or believe in factual measurements, qualitative and quantitative measurements. It's really difficult to not trust those and believe in them. But ultimately, it's super interesting that you can bring these numbers forward, proof, direct proof, science, and people still, choose not to believe it. Right. People will still choose not to believe science.
And I don't.
Isn't that interesting?
Are we still in the 1900s, or the 1800s and early 1900s, where we don't believe in what is true and what is in front of us? I mean, come on, people. We live in an age today that you can look all of this up. You can talk to your nearest scientist. And have them show you the proof of it. Why do we still seem to live in the dark ages when it comes to science? Why are we fighting it?
I think it's a deeper issue, Del. I think it's really deep when you think about it. I think it's why people choose to believe a story. And it's really deep if you think about it. That's why I always talk about so much about fictional stories. Because people ultimately have to choose if they believe in a fictional story based on how powerful it's told and how authentic you are and how vulnerable you are. And even when you are powerful, no matter what, Del, we're going to have people that think we're bullshitters and liars. But no matter how powerful, authentic, true, and factual and scientific you are, people will still choose to not believe in you. And then no matter how fakey and flaky people are still going to choose to believe in them. Right. Look at religion, and there are countless amount of people online that pitch these bullshit stories or these bullshit programs that people still go and choose to give money to or believe in and follow because they choose to. So it's really interesting why we choose to believe in what we believe in and starting to develop concrete scientific statistics behind what we believe in. Right. So basically everything that we talk about, though, that's a lot of why I believe we think a lot alike. We're not always thinking about the same things, but we think a lot alike in that basic concept. We both believe in evidence,
Right.
scientific proof.
Why are we believing in something that we cannot prove?
That's a great topic.
Why are you?
I think another episode should be about that.
Right,
Why are we choosing? Say it again. Why are we choosing?
Yeah, why are we believing? Why are we choosing to believe in something that we can't prove it? We can't prove it one way or the other.
Why? That's a really good topic.
Do you really want to live in a fake believe world, in a fairy tale? Do you really want to live in a world where you just make up things as you go? Or do you want to honestly have the facts and actually make some changes and some choices in your life and live life to the fullest and do it in the right way? I cannot believe it when I hear people believing in things that make no sense whatsoever, and they believe in it so passionately.
I know.
I mean, it's like the Christian Crusades.
I feel terrible for
You don't
people.
believe in my God? You don't? Okay, I'm going to kill you. They believed in it so much, even though they had no way of proving it.
This is why, Del, I want to keep doing what we're doing so much, because I'm getting, not only are we getting great feedback, but also it's what I believe in. And I believe that we have a responsibility as humans
Right.
to share the positive and share this with other people, to help build each other up, bring each other the ability to think in this fashion.
Right.
Like, Del, there's people out there that might not ever have that ability, have had someone come to them and say, hey, why don't we start questioning these things?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we start thinking like this? And that's why I want to start doing speaking events and having speaking events and being speakers at events, because I think what we're talking about needs more voices.
I agree.
And it needs a lot more voices, and it needs a bigger platform. So the more we scale this, the more it's going to grow, and the more you're going to hear about it, because we're going to keep adding one thing at a time. We're going to climb this ladder, and you're going to see it, and we're going to get out there. We're not just going to be podcasting and using social media. We're going to be starting to speak at events, whether it's digital events online or whatever. But we have to bring voices to things that we believe in and we know are like scientifically true. And I will never not stop supporting global warming, because I mean, when I say that, I mean in the constructive way,
Right.
trying to minimize
it. Correct.
Yeah, because I want this. I love life. I'm happy to be alive, and I want my kids, or if I ever do have kids, or whoever, even if they're not my kids, I want other people to be able to experience this.
Well, and I look how beautiful Duluth is. I don't want to lose.
It's
I don't
so
wanna
beautiful.
Lose what the beauty that we have here every day. I'm walking down to my bus stop, and I get to overlook Superior on my way down in the morning and hear the birds.
So
chirping.
beautiful. Or there's seagulls.
Beautiful here.
There's seagulls too.
Right. I don't want to lose that.
Me either.
No.
And it's just selfish tendencies that would. It's just ridiculous.
Right.
People just don't. And I think it's cool watching COVID happen, because I'm seeing all these things change. Where for the first time, you see people that have never thought about other people, or they don't think about, how me not having hygiene, or me not washing my hands, or me not willing to wear a mask simply to help save other people's lives says so much about them.
If you're wearing a mask out there for this, then I applaud you, because
We greatly appreciate it.
You're a humanist.
I mean, I just do
You
it.
care about your fellow man.
I'm not gonna lie. I think it's a little extreme to implement laws to force people, but at the same time, I'm all about doing. It doesn't take any skin off my back.
If you're taking the initiative to look out for the other person like that, it's a humanistic quality, and I applaud you for it.
So yeah, I think I think this topic's great, and I really think the topic and the question you said coming up is something I want to lean into. Is why do we choose to believe in something we can't
prove it?
We can't prove.
There's no evidence to it at all, but we'll sit there and die with it.
I think we could talk about that over and over again, because it's such a great topic for me. And I love fictional stories, and I keep meeting people that say, oh wait, they'll tell me their story, like Bob Monahan, the owner of Hostel du Nord. Shout out, Bob, you're a great guy. And he's told me his story, and he's like, wait, no, JR, this is nonfiction. I go, actually, Bob, no, it's fictional.
It's fictional.
Because every story I hear is fictional. The only thing that makes it true is if I decide it's true.
Correct.
So I like to use qualitative and quantitative evidence to support my truths and to support my beliefs. And so does this guy to my right. And it's been great having him in as part of the team and part of Wierman Media. And we got some big things coming, and it's just really exciting and really fun. And we hope to get as many people involved as possible. So.
All right. Well, we're going to shut this down so we can go hit that bus. I want to thank everybody out there watching us and enjoying our content. If you continue to do that and like that, you can go ahead and subscribe at my YouTube channel, The Recovery Atheist. Get a hold of me on Instagram and also Twitter, The Recovery Atheist. Email is therecoveryatheist@gmail.com, and I'm also on Facebook under Del Bacon with my group.
That's it. That's the one. TRA Entertainment. The
TRA
Recovery
Entertainment,
Atheist,
baby.
He's going to keep coming at you with more content, and ultimately we are here at Wierman Media Studios thinking of you and what ways we can possibly bring you value, perspective, or insight in a fast, fluid, flexible fashion with modern-day content, and that is what we're about. Your attention is once again our oxygen here at Wierman Media.
Peace.
Peace.
Good work.
Yep, I should probably go home. I slept here last night. I should probably go.
Yeah. Come with me.
Yep.
You got my charge cord over there? You download it? That's my computer charge cord. I want to make sure I get that back. Can you unplug that extension cord that's plugged in down there too for me?
Yeah, look at I'm going to show you the video of that room, the main level.
Oh, the new place? Nice.
I know it kind of sucks because we got to move everything, but it's just...
Yeah, but...
It's hard to turn down